Hi, my name is Randy Rosi, and I am standing at the corner of Burton Lane and Deseret Drive. You may have seen a lot of signs recently as you drive around town that say vote for or vote against Proposition 5, and you're wondering, what is that about? So I wanted to give you a little bit of background information so that you can understand what that question is about a little bit more fully. The background on this began back in 2016. There is a company called Puffer Landscaping here in Kaysville, owned by Jim Puffer. They were leasing land from the city in order to store some of their immediate need landscaping materials. They have other sites as well, but for projects that are here locally, they like to have some that are easily accessed. They were leasing a property from the city, but the city was going to need to take use of that property back, and so Mr. Puffer was in need of finding a new property. At the same time, the Old Mill HOA in the west side of Kaysville decided to sell a portion of their open land that was a part of their HOA just because they did not have as many houses developed in their neighborhood as they thought they would. And so they were able to sell that property to then use that money for other developments within their community. The city was aware of this sale and made Mr. Puffer also aware of it. The problem and the complication was that the property in question was zoned as an R120, which is a residential zoning. It's meant for developing houses. But the city at the time told Mr. Puffer that if he purchased this land, there was a good possibility that it could be rezoned to a light industrial zoning. So Mr. Puffer went ahead and purchased the property from the HOA and immediately began storing his landscaping materials on the property because he was coming up against the deadline of changing of seasons and needing to be off of the other land that he was at the time leasing. So he moved all of his landscaping material over there at the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. But as this was occurring, there was a lot of traffic, heavy traffic that was coming with all of these materials, a lot of noise and stirring up of other dust and backup trucks and that sort of thing that the neighbors began to notice. And as they looked into it, they saw that the property was not zoned for this type of storage. So they approached the city about it, and proceedings began for the rezone of the property. The storage of the materials and the moving of materials stopped at that point while all of the rezone then began taking place. So I just want to give you an idea of what the land around this property looks like. We've got the property here, and then off to the north of the property in this direction, you'll see that we've got a power substation, and then also down this hill there is a storage yard, for lack of a better term, that is used by the city to store materials that are being used for road construction and other constructions on this side of town. As we come around to the east, we've got the Burton Lane Bridge, and then a storage facility with the railroad tracks and the freeway just beyond that. And I apologize if you're watching this and see your car. Down to the south, we do have a home located to the south of the property, and to the west is the rail trail and then homes that are in the equestrian estate subdivision. So this is where this property began being used for landscape storage, and the neighbors around the property began talking to the city about this and working through the process. The rezone first came before the Planning Commission in April of 2017, and then the City Council in May of 2017. The City Council sent this back to the homeowners and the new landowner multiple times to see if they could come up with development agreements. And you'll notice there are a lot of trees that are along this property now that were not there in previous photos. This was all part of the use agreement and development agreement that the neighbors and Mr. Puffer came up with as they were trying to figure out if there was a way to use this property for light industrial at the same time as not disturbing the peace around the neighbors. It was approved finally in September of 2017. But there were many neighbors that still felt that this was not an appropriate use of the land and began gathering signatures that would request that this rezone be placed on the ballot so that the citizens could decide if this was an appropriate use of land. And that is what Proposition 5 is basically the question of, should this rezone be upheld? So voting yes would mean that you agree with the council's decision to rezone it to a light industrial, and voting no means that you are opposed to the council decision. If more yeses are garnered through the vote, then the rezone will be upheld. If more noes are garnered, then the rezone will be reversed, and this will not be able to be used for light industrial. So as you are looking at your ballot and wondering what Proposition 5 is, this is a little bit of background to help you understand that a little more fully.